This is what I find so interesting in this movie. Okay, you find yourself in the room. 999 people in that room don't make the move that she made. That's power. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Real Impact. My name is Tom Bilyeu, and I took myself from scrounging at my couch cushions to find enough change to put gas in my car to building a billion-dollar business, and I largely did it by sucking the marrow out of all the movies and TV shows and things that I watched. I'm telling you, there is a wealth of knowledge in these films, and that's why we created this show. I am flanked on my left by Dr. Finesse and on my right by Casey Files, Elliot, and today we are talking about Molly's Game. Spoiler alert. We're going to dive into this bad boy, show you what you can learn, and chastise Dr. Finesse. In fact, we're going to have to downgrade him from his doctorate back to like a master's in finesse right now for failing to say spoiler alert. But nonetheless, spoiler alert, but we're going to tell you our thoughts on what you can extract from this movie and hopefully use in your real life. That is what this channel is all about, boys and girls. And by the way, if you're not already following me on YouTube/Tom Bilyeu to get all kinds of mindset advice on how I built the companies that I built, go check that out right now. And right now, we're building a movie studio, boys and girls. Also film and TV. So that's why we're talking about this. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. And without further ado, we're going to dive right into what our thinking is. And to give you a little bit of a framework on the show, we break it into segments. So sit back and relax. Actually, don't. Lean forward. Type something into the comments because we want to know what you guys think as well. All right. But without further ado, number one, give us your thoughts. Master of finesse.
Oh. Molly's Game. You know, it's... I remember thinking, I don't know if I'm going to like this film going in. Because I'm not riding the Jessica Chastain train. I'm just not. And I've never been. And everyone is on the Jessica Chastain train.
But what about the man behind this movie whose train I am always on?
Well, Aaron Sorkin, I'm hot and cold with him. Because it's like Speed.
Like Speed the drug?
Pun intended, yes. And you can tell... a little inside baseball because it's
you can tell that he's on speed. Is that what you're saying? Are you for real? I thought like all right, we could derail on that. All right, I'll let you go.
And yeah, so it's sometimes it's a little too much for me, but it works sometimes and it doesn't work sometimes for me. And for this film, it absolutely worked. And you know what? I'm on the Jessica Chastain train. I'm gonna keep saying that because it rhymes. I'm like Jesse Jackson. But yeah, so this movie, I thought it was great. It was a nice surprise. I loved the beginning, her narration when she was talking about the worst thing that can happen in sports. And I remember thinking like, wait, what? The worst thing that can happen in sports? And she's naming all these things like losing, you know, in this match and doing this and this and that. And I remember thinking right away, I'm like, no, an injury is the worst thing that can happen in sports. Not fourth place in the Olympics, although I could imagine that being really awful. So it's funny that it turned out to be her injury, but she had to redefine herself. So right away I was in. I don't think I knew that part about Molly Bloom.
You know that it's actually not true?
Is it not true?
Yeah, I dove in hard on this movie afterwards because I loved this movie.
Yeah.
I was so into this movie. Like, it is rare that I have a hard time not like just talking to people about it because I like want people to go in and see for themselves. Yeah. This one, man, I wanted to pin people down and just talk about because I loved it that much. This was really great cinema for me. Amazing storytelling. I am an Aaron Sorkin absolute fanboy. This guy can do no wrong for me. If it's Speed, I hope he does a lot more of it. Keep it coming because, dude, I was way, way, way into this movie. Super powerful female lead, which I thought was awesome. As somebody who's married to a powerhouse female, like I way, way into these kind of movies. I thought this was great, but that part is fake. It's one of the only sort of key moments in the film that he just straight made up.
The injury.
And, yeah, the injury. So she did injure herself as a kid. That whole thing about having scoliosis or whatever, sudden onset scoliosis, that's real, but that isn't how she ended up. And I don't remember what it was that caused her to give up on her skiing career. I think she just kind of burned out.
So much less awesome.
Yeah, she did not have.
I remember even going to YouTube and trying to find her actual fall, and I was like, wow, I can't believe it's not anywhere. But now I get it, yeah. But hey, nonetheless, I still thought it was a great film all around. Great cast, great acting, great use of fragmented storytelling, which sometimes that could be annoying in film, but with this, it worked perfectly. Loved it.
Word.
Yeah, I almost loved the entire movie, but there were little elements there were things that I really loved and then things that I think it was a little bit the Aaron Sorkin of it all, where it's just like so obviously so much dialogue. And to me, the VO was relentless. And in some ways, I liked it because I'm like, wow, this is so her story. I love that. Like, she's just, it's all about her, which I loved as her being this powerful female character, the hero of the film. But I was also like, I'm tired of like hearing it from her voice in a way. Like, I want to see it. I don't want to hear it.
You guys are breaking my heart.
But that's not to say I didn't really like the movie. I did, but I'm not as perhaps over the moon as you are.
Wow.
And it's because it's just so very, I don't know. It's his style. He's allowed to have his style, but I don't know. I'm not sure I'm totally sold.
I think this movie may be in my top 100.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
only
not like
100?
a top 10. Only 100
Okay.
in fairness. This isn't in my top 10 or anything like that.
Okay.
But this one really rocked me. And so this is definitely like how I view the world, and I fully understand that. But this movie, in terms of business lessons, has some like literally on the nose where she actually gives a diatribe. And I love this, by the way. I don't think this is a bad thing. Yeah. And to hear you call the voiceover unrelenting, wow. I thought it was amazing. The voiceover allows you to give these really punchy moments, get inside her head, and get some very clear takeaways, which for me, I love in movies. And one of them she talks about, essentially says the cliche, but in a really interesting way, that your net worth is your network, right? So being in the room, as she talks about, and really seeing that moment and understanding that there's power going on behind the scenes. And she talks about how critical it was for her to be able to eavesdrop on these high-level conversations. And one of the things that I learned about business is it really, really, truly, the reason people say it's not what you know, it's who you know, which, by the way, is total bullshit. But who you know also becomes massively important because you get that inside information. You understand, like, maybe it doesn't even apply directly to your industry, but you begin to understand how people view the world, how they approach a negotiation, how far they can push. And hearing that information short circuits your own learning process. So they say a fool never learns, a smart man learns from his mistakes, and a wise man learns from the mistakes of others. Like hearing how other people negotiate something, hearing where other people fall down or where a deal falls apart, or just how they think about the structure of something. That's literally what she was doing. So she's getting an MBA, literally an MBA, like in a poker game. So, and I've heard people talk about this, like if you read Howard Schultz's book, Onward. Howard Schultz is the founder of Starbucks. Yeah. And when he came back, he talks about like how he rekindled things and how he got the company going against. So they have all the massive success. He leaves, retires, but still quite young. And then Starbucks begins to flounder, and so he goes back. And when he goes back, he's like, I've got Larry Ellison, the founder of Oracle, on speed dial, and we're both vacationing in Hawaii. And so like we start doing bike rides together and just talking, and you hear like all these other high-level executives and how many of them know each other and lean on each other. And you realize how this information transfer happens in like the craziest of places. And through the voiceover, through Aaron Sorkin's like really rapid dialogue, she's able to get across a lot of this information. And so I'm watching this going, this is actual real advice. So that was one of the reasons I loved it. And it's just smash bang great storytelling, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, especially when she went into that whole section of what she learned from all these people. That whole scene, I absolutely loved because, you know, that I applied that to what I learned coming up. And you know, your net work is your net worth. Like that is for sure in almost any industry, but especially like working in the Hollywood industry, that was for sure. You know what I mean? You had to take advantage of anyone and everyone you talked to. And even just the most random situations, just like in this, you would just be talking to someone and just the wealth of information that would come out of people's mouths. And in her situation, being around so many influential people, you know, whether it's people in sports, whether it's people in Hollywood, whether it's people in banking or in Silicon Valley, how can you not take advantage of that? And what I loved about that is she could have easily just been the person there collecting the money. She could have been checking her little BlackBerry that she had. She could have been in a computer. She could have been daydreaming. But instead, she sat there and learned and was a sponge and soaked in everything she needed to do. Like Molly was playing her game from the start, from the jump.
And I love seeing this played out as a female character. That to me is really cool. And I love that it's a real person.
Yeah.
And when you think about intelligence, right now, I think a lot of people are caught up in what school did you go to, what's your degree, what grades did you get? And so seeing her leverage her intelligence to do something so basic and so fundamental, which is I find myself in a room. And this is what I find so interesting in this movie. Okay, you find yourself in the room. 999 people in that room don't make the move that she made.
Oh, no.
And this is opportunity lost at its finest. And she didn't do that. She says, I spent the whole time while they're talking, I spend it researching. Every time they say a word I don't understand, I look it up.
I love that.
Right? And seeing that, like, that's power. Like, no, male, female, whatever. Like, if you really want to capture your power, doing that, taking the time to educate yourself, taking the time to really go deep and learn it. And so understanding, and this is one of the things that the movie makes clear to me, is understanding that the great equalizer, because it's a room full of men, right? Like, how many women end up making it to the table? Virtually zero. I don't think they really showcase really anyone.
Not a single one.
But because the thing that wins ultimately is talent, and talent is cultivated. She comes into a room, she knows nothing about it. She's the only woman. Would have been very easy for her to allow herself to remain an outsider. But she takes over the game by getting better than anyone else. And so she learns and makes better moves than the guy whose game it was.
Yeah.
And that to me is the eternal lesson. I thought it was amazing. All right, let's jump into our first segment here, Cold Stone Themery. Let's get after it. Some
Our
themes
favorite title.
from the film. Yes.
Favorite segment title. Thanks, Master of Finesse.
Yeah.
Still demoted.
Maybe you can go up to Doctor. So at the end of the film, spoiler alert, Molly actually quotes a great Winston Churchill quote. Says a quote by Winston Churchill. Success is the ability to move from one failure to another without loss of enthusiasm. And I can't think of a character, maybe ever, there probably is, but right now in my brain who has done that so clearly in a film. I mean, she is not deterred by failure. We see like her suffer a little bit when she has failures in the film, but she comes back fighting like every time, including after this catastrophic injury during her skiing career, which at that point was her life. So I'm trying to think of like what's a more dramatic moment of failure than like you can never do the thing that you've worked your whole life to do. She experiences that, and as you just said, comes back and learns something she knew nothing about to succeed again. So I guess this question is just like how does Molly exemplify someone who can learn from failures? Why is that important? And how does she seize those opportunities to learn?
Yeah, you know, that's a powerful quote because it's so true. It's like the Colonel Sanders story that we always hear with the recipes. What was it? Like he got turned down. I forgot the amount of time, but amount of times he got turned down.
Did he start the company when he was like 60?
Yeah, it was something crazy. Yeah, and he just stuck to it. I mean, you're moving on with enthusiasm because that's the thing. I could think of a million things that I failed at or even just had some type of doubt. You know, from the start, and I just moved on. It's like, I don't want to do that. No, I failed at that. Or, no, that's not going to work. Whatever. It just gets in the way. And nothing drains your enthusiasm like failing at something. Oh, man. But if you can get up and do it again, I think that's one of the things that people take for granted to this day. Successful people and how many times they failed and how many times they stuck with and to their passion. That just doesn't happen too often. And we see it all the time. I mean, just think of your friends, think of yourself. Do you
remember the Nerd Writer?
Yeah.
So for those watching that haven't seen the show, we have another show called Impact Theory, ironically enough. But it's an interview show. And one of the people that we had on the show was a guy named Evan Pushak, who's AKA the Nerd Writer on YouTube.
Correct. Amazing
thinker, the way that he thinks. And I was, because of the clip episode that we released, was reminded of what he was talking about with this notion of kintsugi, the Japanese art of when something breaks, that you actually put it back together using this beautiful gold glue. And it ends up making it even more beautiful. Yeah. And he was talking about that, and he'd given this speech in like Singapore or something. And he said, there's only a few times in your life where something so catastrophic happens that you go through this major trauma. But the trauma itself forces you to reevaluate your story that you tell yourself about yourself. And he said, while you never glorify the trauma, right? So you never glorify the accident that she has in the movie, from that comes this need to reinvent herself. So even if we take the real life example, she gives up skiing, whatever, maybe doesn't have the accident, but she gives it up, and now she's got to really tell herself a new story about who she is. And in that moment, while no one's ever going to be excited about that loss, which is essentially the death of your old self, you really do have the opportunity to redefine yourself. And I remember when I went to college, I went from being somebody who was pursuing stand-up comedy, and that was going to be the aim of my life, to being somebody who wanted to take himself more seriously. And that reinvention, while it was letting go of this old version of myself, the reinvention has since guided my life. And then the first movement being as a filmmaker, and then realizing I wanted to reinvent myself as an entrepreneur, only to then reinvent myself again as a creative entrepreneur. So the things that really stick, though, are from those moments of pain, which to the theme is something that I think that this movie could have become the thing that I hate, which is a downward spiral film where the person just makes bad decision after bad decision after bad decision, which they avoid, which I thought was absolutely incredible. And we don't get into, even though she makes some bad decisions, it isn't just one after another after another. You can watch somebody really learn, improve, and do something better, which I thought was pretty extraordinary. But the movie does take time to reflect on those moments of pain and loss, right? So the first moment of pain and loss is the skiing career. The second moment of pain and loss is when the game is taken from her. And she talks and another reason why the unrelenting voiceover was so magical for me is we get inside her head, and she walks us through that moment of, this is what's happening to me internally, right? Which would be very hard to externalize on screen without that, where she talks about the guy that's heckling her, player X, saying basically, you're fucked now. We intentionally took the game away from you, and what are you going to do? All right, I'm going to put a period in that, and I'm going to ask, do you guys know who the real life player X is?
No, do you?
I do.
I have my suspicions, but...
Oh, I want to hear this first.
But
What's
I
your
don't want to say it
suspicion?
on
But
here,
wait, let me
Oh,
say.
really? Do we need to bleep it out?
I will say, if we say who it is, we're not really going with the integrity of the film to not say who it is.
Interesting. I'm not sure where to go with that. I'm not
sorry
sure where to go with that.
Wait, maybe you guys should type it in your comments who you think player X.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's perfect.
there you
Drop
go.
into your comments. And by the way, don't cheat. Don't go look it up on the internet. I never would have guessed this in a million years. So drop in your answer first.
So you got
Once
confirmation?
Yes.
Oh, I wonder if it's who I think it is.
So put that in. And in fact, hide your mouth from camera and say who you think it is. We'll bleep it out, and I'll tell you if you're right or not.
Got it. Okay.
Yes.
What?
How the fuck did you know
Are you
that?
serious? Oh, man.
Would you have guessed that?
No, I looked it up.
Yeah, I had to look it up
My
too. How the fuck did you know
life,
that?
I knew it was him. Oh my God. So are we going to cut this part out?
We
What?
will bleep that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So the reason I knew, I feel so good about this.
Wow.
All my life I knew it was him. Okay. So
He's a notorious poker player, which I had no idea.
Notorious poker
And the
player.
fact that
You know
he's
who
that
else knew?
good?
Courtney,
She
our
knew him?
coworker. Yeah.
He's a
Whoa.
notorious poker player. So that's known. Also, he played the way, I want to blank on his name.
Michael Cera.
Michael Cera, the way he played him, I was like, oh, he's totally being him, right?
Really?
Yeah. I know someone who used to be his personal assistant, and I
course you
heard stories, and then it's an Easter egg. His name is mentioned in the movie at some point randomly.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I was like, oh, you don't just randomly mention that name. And I was like, it's him. Yeah. So that's how I knew.
That's interesting.
funny.
I
Yeah.
was shocked to my core. And
Really?
we should wrap it up there because we're not revealing who it is. But I had
Well,
no
I do want to
idea.
say I listened to an interview with Aaron Sorkin where he talked about why did you make this decision to not actually have these be the people, and obviously they really felt like we want to be true to Molly's feelings on the
thought
issue.
She named him in the book, though.
She did because
He
they
comes
were
out in the
already
lawsuit or
named in the
whatever,
lawsuit,
yeah.
but it wasn't like her choice. So I think and the point, kind of her moral compass in the film is that she's not going to name other people to save herself.
Right.
And what Aaron Sorkin said attracted him to the movie is this is her story. This is not about the celebrities. This is not about the Hollywood glitz of
got
it.
it.
And he was always afraid that when he wrote the script, another director would focus on that instead of making.
So
it
there
about
is hardcore
Molly.
confirmation that it's him.
Yes.
I'm gonna be
all
walking. I'm gonna be
over
But
walking.
I
the
love
City
that
Hall
they
today.
didn't because
Wow.
it is about her then, and
Wow.
it's not about the celebrities and the gossip, which I think is great.
Yeah, and it made it more fun for me to go and like research because
Yeah.
it is rare. So Michael Cera there, it is rare. By the way, he was great in this.
Yeah.
Talk about somebody I keep expecting to disappear, and he comes back and he's
Yeah.
great.
He
I
has
really,
Night
really
Live.
enjoyed him.
Yeah.
And I, in Superbad, thought he was just he is a national treasure. And
He is
Treasure.
Tom. You need to
Him
watch
and Superbad.
him on the new Twin Peaks.
He's
Just
in it?
watch it out of context. You don't even need to see the rest of the
Wow.
show. Outstanding, Michael Cera.
Yeah, he was unbelievable in this because to me, he's sort of playing against type because he's so dweeby.
Yeah.
And so to play somebody so fucking ice in their veins and like hardcore,
Yeah.
I was like, but doesn't become a caricature, which I thought was fun.
Yeah,
So-
he played it really well.
Yeah, loved it. I forget. I think I was about to go somewhere, but I forget now. So what do we have another theme?
It's
or-
actually a new segment time.
all right. New segment time.
Moving
It is.
along.
All right. Next one. Case closed.
Okay, so near the end of the film, Molly has a bit of a contentious relationship with her father, who was a very domineering, your classic Olympic athlete father. And so at the end of the film, they've been estranged during her whole escapade as the poker princess. So at the end of the film, her father's a therapist. He comes back to her and basically breaks down for her why things have gone wrong in her life.
Love this scene, by the way, but the moment right before it was so weird.
Oh, the
It's the only
skating.
thing where I was like,
Yeah, catch me.
What?
I'm like, wait, what's happening?
Agreed.
I thought she was gonna bust her ass. Well, she did bust her ass.
that was whatever. But when the father appears out of nowhere,
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah, I was like, that's a dream. It's a vision.
I thought she was dreaming.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah.
I was
Same.
like,
Yeah.
this is clearly a
I'm like,
dream.
oh, no, he's
It's
there.
not a dream. He's actually supposed to be there. The world's biggest fucking coincidence. You're in a city with like 13
Yeah.
million people, and you randomly go to a skating rink, and he randomly happens to be at
That was
They
so
tried
random.
explaining
Come
it.
on.
They said something like, "Your mom
Terrible.
said you were here."
terrible.
Yeah.
Nope.
Not believing
Unforgivable.
it.
It's the
Not happening,
one.
Costner.
Yeah, the one moment in the movie. Thankfully, the scene was amazing.
Yeah,
Yes.
fantastic.
One of the best scenes
And I'll
in the
say
movie.
they did. Aaron Sorkin thought he wanted Kevin Costner from the beginning.
Really?
Thought there's no way I'm going to get him for this. There's no way. And then when he got him, he wrote this scene because he was like, "We need like a scene deserving."
That's
of
fair.
This actor.
So there's the dinner table scene when she was a kid.
Yes.
That I thought was great.
That was great.
And I thought, wow, I'm glad they got somebody that could really pull this moment off because it becomes like it really helps you understand.
Yeah.
Like why she's become who she's become, not knowing that we were about to get this great scene.
Oh yeah.
But then
Oh, yeah.
we got this great scene, and
So the question is his breakdown, his therapy session with his daughter, does he accurately break down what her issues are?
and
And is it
really fast,
helpful
give
for
us give us the 3 issues, and then
Sure.
we'll take them one by
So
one.
number 1, she loved the game because she wanted to control powerful men. Number 2, we learn in the film that her father was cheating on her mother, and he reveals that Molly knew this as a child, even though it was sort of in her subconscious. She doesn't even realize she knew it at such a young age. So this is why she has such contempt for him growing up. And so that's been a problem for her whole life. I think specifically her relationships with men because of that. And then thirdly, that her actual true issue is that she can't give up control. So when she loses her skiing career, it's because of a twig. She was completely prepared. There was no way for her to control not skiing over that twig and injuring herself and never skiing again. The poker game, was all about her having complete control. Something which could be considered an Achilles heel, because you cannot control every aspect of your life, or can you? Open for debate.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Dr. Finesse, you want to kick us off?
So was there a question at the end of that?
It's
Sorry.
do you think that he accurately
Oh,
broke down
yes.
what
So,
her
yeah.
problems are?
I think so. I mean, I don't know Molly Bloom personally, so I may
So
be
you
dead wrong.
actually saw in the movie, like even just taking this as a fictional tale, you actually saw in the movie a need to control powerful men.
Oh yeah, well, that and the other issues. Because here's the thing, and this may sound awful, but I'll attribute it to myself. Okay, so I speak to a lot of my female friends, and I hear the ones at least who have an issue with powerful men, and have an issue of always taking the back seat to powerful men, and I attribute that to myself because I think about it being a minority in certain businesses and many businesses that I work with, where I'm the one black guy, I'm the token black guy. So naturally in my head, and anyone of color feels this way, and if you say you don't, you're lying. Because 9 times out of 10, if you're in a community or in a business, especially with, and if there are a lot of powerful white men, you feel the need to prove yourself. That's just how it is. You feel the need to prove yourself, so you work extra hard. There's even a saying, you see it in movies all the time, you see it in narratives all the time, with the black father telling the son, you got to prove yourself. You got to work extra harder to be. There's a truth in the United States. I'll speak for the United States and where I've lived. I've lived in the South, all over the South, and you feel the need to work extra harder to seize control and to be the better person and to, I don't want to say take down the white man, but, rise above it all. You know what I mean? It's an accomplishment. It's a huge badge of honor. And I've had many of conversations with women, and it's almost similar. You know what I mean? With not necessarily controlling powerful men, because that sounds negative, but, we see it time and time again, and we see it with unequal pay. Women have to work extra hard. They just do to prove themselves. We see it in board meetings. Sometimes their ideas are passed over. And of course you're going to, if that's coming at you all the time, you're going to want to have to prove yourself, and you're going to prove yourself. And I saw that with her. Even just we're talking to her dad at the table earlier when she was younger. And when she was picking a fight, I didn't see it as just picking a fight. She was trying to engage in a conversation where she can control the situation. So, there are certain aspects. And even going back to the twig, controlling her life and having control because of one thing that was out of control wrecked her skiing career forever. So she wanted to do something that she can control. I can think of a thousand examples of that in my life, but I think he accurately broke it down. Whether or not she agreed with all of them or one of them, but everything he said, I was like, that makes sense.
Now, in the end, he says, "I was lying about you wanting to control powerful men just to get your attention."
Yeah.
So you think she really was?
I think there's a reason it's written in there. You know what I mean? I think there's a reason, and I'm not saying like, all women want to control powerful men, but coming from the mouth of a minority who has worked in many a situations, and talking to my other minority friends, we all think that way. We just
really interesting.
Yeah, and then
he's looking off camera to
another
young man of
minority,
Indian descent.
Guy.
Yeah,
Like, hey, we think that way, don't we? No, but
I just saw that slice smile. I was like,
yeah, we do. We want to control a powerful white man. And then I've had my women friends open up to me because they know that I can relate to what they're saying all the time. So yeah, we want to control powerful white men.
Mic drop. What do you think? Was it BS? Like, is it just the cold open to get her attention, or did you see that in the narrative?
It got my attention that way because when he said that, I was like, "What? Get out of here, Kevin Costner!"
That is exactly how I was.
Screw you! I was pissed. And so then later when he says,
because you think that cheapens it, or
because I thought that's not what it's about at all. That is not what it's about at all. Yeah. She's not trying to control men. That seems like such a surface assessment. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Whereas then when he started getting into, you subconsciously knew this thing about me, and you also felt like you were in competition with your brothers at all times. It felt to me more like she just wants to be. Okay, so let me backtrack. In an earlier scene, they show a video of like young Molly, and it's Kevin Costner's interviewing her as a child. Mm-hmm. And he asks her, "Who are like the heroes in your life?" And she awesomely responds that she's basically hopes to become her own hero. She's already her own hero, but she's going to become the kind of person where she's the hero. I loved that. It's funny because in the voiceover, she kind of makes a joke like, "Oh, I was so full of myself as a child." But that's what I see it as. Like, it's not about men. She happens to be in a world where surrounded by men. Christopher's not buying it. She happens to be in a world surrounded by men, but that's just where she didn't seek that world out. She was hired as an assistant. She saw an opportunity. She took it, and then she bested all the men. Yes, hell yeah. But I don't see it as this is all because she wants it. Sure, but I don't think it was about controlling powerful men. Of course. Yeah, I guess is what I'm saying. Yeah. Christopher. Hey, as the only female on this panel,
I'm like putting truth to her mouth. I'm like, as a man, I know what you was saying.
And also as someone who gets a lot of anxiety when I feel out of control, I definitely what's the word? I'm losing the word, but I felt for her in that sense. Like that rang really true to me. Like, and you know, I've never been in a situation where I was an Olympic athlete and this one thing that I could never control ruined my career. But even just saying that right now makes me anxious and gives me like sweaty palms. So, so that felt to me, what he ultimately ends up saying to her felt to me like her Achilles heel, as I said earlier, because in the end, you can be so prepared for your life, and you should be in the best way possible, but you also have to know that there are sometimes going to be things that are out of your control, and the best thing you can do is then come back from them and like rise like a phoenix as she does.
It's really interesting. This conversation right here is making me realize that we all see things like from our perspective, and that perspective colors what we see so powerfully. So when I'm watching it, I've been caught up in this like an entrepreneurial drama, right? About somebody who, because literally the number of parallels to my own story about finding myself sort of almost randomly in a situation I did not expect to be in. And then going, I've got an opportunity here to learn, and I'm going to learn everything that I can. And I'm going to try to literally take over this company. I remember that's what I was thinking. I was hired as a copywriter and told that I could have any job in the company I wanted, but I had to become the right person for that job. So I just start learning voraciously, trying to climb up in the company. And ultimately I do, and it goes on to me founding other companies and being very, very successful. And so that's what I'm watching in Molly's game. So when he goes, this was about you controlling powerful men, I was like, what the fuck? Like, it so was jarring to me. I was like, that's not what this is about. This is about wanting to be the best. Right?
Yeah.
This is somebody who, like, fuck male, female, like, none of that matters. This is about somebody who, from the time that she's a kid, first, I'm sure, starts wanting to prove her father wrong, right? Because oh God, one of my favorite moments in the film, when you were talking earlier about raising your son, I was like, oh God, I actually don't know what the right answer is. So we were talking earlier and Christopher was like, I don't want to put too much pressure on my kid. And in the movie, they address it directly. And she wants to stop skiing. And her father, when she's very, very young, just for the day, just wants to go home. I'm cold, I want to stop. And he knows that if she wants to be one of the best, she's got to keep going. And so he says, what's a synonym for quit? And I was like,
Tired, I believe.
like not sure like what she was going to say. And she goes, weak. And he's like, all right, then come on, let's go. And she goes, no, I'm going back up to the hill. I have the chills now. Like, that to me is empowering. It's like this awesome moment. And I get it. I was supposed to think shame on him, like, for doing that. But I was like, this is why she ends up being successful later. And it didn't have to be. Like, if she hadn't done the, 2% take the game, everything she was doing was legal. So like, you can't even say, oh, she got caught up in this like negative world, and so see, it all starts back then. Not at all. She could have kept it above board. And it was that discipline that he instilled in her to associate quitting with weakness, which is a character judgment, right? Letting your identity be tied up in doing well, which I love and know is controversial, but I'm telling you is how people go on to be successful. And so hearing him make it about something so trite. So I need it. Like when he finally goes, that's just what I said to get your attention. I was like, oh, thank God. Because if you were actually asking me to believe that on some subconscious level, this wasn't about the joy, the absolute massive joy of becoming the best, being better than everyone else in the room, that's intoxicating. And it's a theme you see through the whole movie. So player X wants to be the best. And now I hated the part of his personality where he's like, I don't even like playing poker. I just like destroying lives. That was so gross to me. I was like, which is why when I found out who it really was, I was like, oh, that's so icky. But that he wants to be better than everyone, I get it. And to like get so good that you can't be denied, you know me. That's like my juice.
Yeah, it's your juice.
So I think...
And she doesn't quit once in this movie.
No.
She does not failure after failure, not even a failure, but just like setback after setback. Unstoppable.
No, too legit to quit.
What's the with Molly? Unstoppable Molly Bloom.
Unstoppable Molly. Woo!
She's unstoppable, then you have the unsinkable Molly Brown, right?
Oh, that's right, yeah.
I thought
I mean, like I said, I think I still stick to my guns. I think it was all three. We're very multi-layered. Nothing is just clean and dry. We're not like, oh, I'm doing this for this reason. I think there are some heavy layers. There's a reason those three things are written. Yeah, he's trying to get her attention, but it's written for a reason. And, the twig is out of her control, and she wants to do the best. That is, to me, that is a beautiful layer of her reasonings. You know what I mean? Like where she wanted to be, because that's a huge thing. You're built to be someone all your life. Your brother goes on to do it successfully, and because of a twig, bam, you're done, right? And then you have this weird thing with your father. You think that, oh, you know, you have no respect for him because you saw him cheating. I mean, that weighs a lot on kids. Any friend of mine who has discovered a parent cheating, and God forbid, you know, that's a terrible thing. It weighs on them. It's very textbook, but it weighs on them. And then again, going back to being in a world dominated by a certain creed, you're going to want to get ahead of that. So I think it's a very multi-layered assessment, and that's why I love to see it all around.
I'll give it that. There was a lot
Well,
of nuance.
I'll say that the case was not closed in this segment because we
Not
couldn't
closed.
agree.
You're
But
absolutely
what do
right.
you all
Case
think?
unclosed.
Yeah, let us know. Drop in your comments. We want to hear what you guys think. It would be amazing. Open this up to a little bit of dialogue. All right, next up, we've got What Would You Do? What would you do? A moment of crisis in the film where you get to engage and decide what you would do in today's.
So one of my favorite parts of the film is the connection to the Crucible, because that was always one of my favorite things I've ever read. Loved it. Saw it coming a mile away, I will say. As soon as she was reading the Crucible, I'm like, oh, they're going to bring that back up.
Yeah.
So, and in fact, even later in the movie, there's a situation where Molly has a bunch of hard drives that have all the records, her cell phone records, emails that she would have had with any of the players in any of her games. Idris
all the
Elba, who we
text
haven't
messages
even
and everything.
Yes,
We haven't even mentioned this in the film.
Idris Elba, who we haven't even talked about yet, her attorney. Love you, Idris. So he's like, we need these drives. He gets her to give him the drives. He's hoping he'll find something to help defend her. But eventually the prosecutors want to make a deal. They want the drives. She can get total immunity. But Molly's very much against this deal. She doesn't want to let information get out that could hurt innocent people, say the families of the players. There's a lot of secrets in those text messages that are on those hard drives. The Crucible connection is this is very similar to the main character in the Crucible, who refuses to say he's a witch when he's not because of his name. Molly even quotes the film.
My name.
Yeah. So
That was delivered well. By the way.
because it is my name, because I cannot have another in my life. The Crucible, Arthur Miller.
So good.
U of M grad. Okay. Go Blue. Okay, so my question is, would you hand over the hard drives to get total immunity? What would you do?
Yeah, that's tough. Actually, no, it's not tough. I definitely would not. And that just comes down to building a career on networking. That's just one thing you don't do. You don't burn bridges at all. I can't say it enough. I've seen it happen so many times. I'm sure we've all seen it happen. And I'm always befuddled when I see someone like carelessly burn a bridge and don't care. And I'm thinking, unless you're planning on leaving the industry and going to a remote island, and you give like zero fucks, then yes, burn a bridge, give a finger, tip a table, whatever. But otherwise, you can't. And you can't, like, again, it's not like I'm from the streets. I'm not. But I live by the creed of snitches get stitches. And I believe in it. You know what I mean? Like, snitches get stitches. Like, you don't snitch. And yes, like I said, I'm from the burbs, but I still stick to that. So Molly clearly was born, into a family of, I don't want to say affluence, but prestige because of what her dad did. But hey, man, snitches got stitches in her world. So I back what Molly did all the way, and she wanted to keep her name. She wanted to keep her credibility. That's exactly what I would do. I would not sing like a canary. And I'm always amazed when people do. I mean, I guess if you don't want to have jail time, which actually works out for her. But still, yeah, I would not give up the hard drive. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree. It's hard. Like, maybe it's easy to say that now when we're not in that situation, but I would hope that I would not do that. Now, the deal is you don't go to jail. Like, there's a lot of serious allegations against her at this point. So it's thrilling to see that she doesn't do it. And I would hope that I would make the same decision. I really think that I would, because when you're in, when you have a lot of people's secrets, you do have a lot of power, but yeah, it ruins who you are as a person, your moral fiber, if you use those secrets against those people who trusted you initially. And actually what I love even more about it, it's not so much the people that she worked with. She's more concerned about the people that will be hurt outside of that she doesn't even know. The families. Yeah, exactly. And so to risk your own life, basically, it's not her life, but if you want to go back to the Crucible, John Proctor is not going to say he's a witch, and he doesn't, and they kill him because that's what they do to people that don't admit that they're a witch. So it's not quite as dire in this case, but it's pretty dire for her to be sent to prison, and she's not going to sully her name, and she's not going to hurt others in order to save herself. I would like to think I would do the same.
Do you guys, I hope that this story is true. I've certainly lived a long time believing that it is true, that one of the guys caught up in the Deep Throat Nixon scandal refused to tell and was facing and served, I think, a lot of prison time. And as the story goes, somebody said, like, how do I know that you won't tell? And this is the story. I want to believe it's true, but I don't know that it is. That he literally lit a lighter and let his hand burn until they could smell the flesh burning and didn't move his hand to show them, you can't break me. I always thought that was so cool. Like, there's a great quote that's sort of along these lines, which is, if you're ever given the choice between betraying your best friend and betraying your country, I hope you have the courage to betray your country. And I love that, right? And the meaning behind that is the country will kill you for the betrayal, whereas your friend won't. But the friend is a more meaningful person to uphold a standard. And because these people she asked them implicitly or explicitly to trust her. And so you can't, like, forget your name. Like, honestly, in that moment, it wouldn't be about my name. It would be about how I think about myself. And so if I can go to prison with my head held high while I would not want to, the only thing in life I don't want to do is hang my head in self-disappointment. So in that moment, because of that, because I know intensely, like, that's all you've got in those quiet moments when no one else is around, how do you feel about yourself? That will determine the course of your fulfillment in life. So yeah, there's no one.
And then how powerful is it when she actually goes and pleads guilty?
Yeah.
Because I didn't know it was good. I had no idea what the story was. So she ends up.
And it was it's so powerful because even earlier he knows that she's not that type of person. He gives her his phone, all his contacts, his hard drive, everything.
Idris Elba.
Idris Elba, sorry, yes. He goes, here's my phone. Everything, every case I have is in there. Everything. She goes, well, how do you know I'm not going to look at it? He goes, I know you're not going to look at it. He knows she's that type of person, and still he pleads with her to give up the names. And so that, I thought that was a bit of irony. But yeah, man, it's just trust is a big thing. And all my friends know that I'm a vault. Like, to the point where they tell me secrets where I wish they didn't tell me. But I'm so much of a vault that I often forget the secrets. Like, when a secret comes out, someone will say it, and I'm like, wait, what? And then someone will be like, you knew that. Oh, yeah, I didn't know that. And I feel like I'm tested all the time. You'd be amazed how many times I get tested by my friends, or they'll come and say something, and I just have the blank face. I just let them tell the whole story. I'm like, act like I don't know what they're talking about. Like, oh, so-and-so told me that, and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Vault. So I respect that.
Nice.
I respect that.
Cool. All right, it's time for our last segment, Where Your Thumbs At. This is where we break a film down from the point of cinema. Was it a good movie? And then from the point of mindset. Was there something for you to take away that you can actually use in your life? All right, Master of Finesse, take it away.
So for me, like I said, it was a nice surprise, for sure. I enjoyed Jessica Chastain. I think I get it now. I get what the hype is. There's something about the way she delivers her lines, even in an Aaron Sorkin film. And this happened to be an Aaron Sorkin film that I like. So that was great. The VO was fantastic. I know Casey did not like it, but I thought it worked really well with the film.
I think the word you said was unrelenting.
But yeah. So yeah.
People, tell me if you think it's unrelenting.
Right in the comments. No, but yeah, so all around, I think it was a solid film. So I definitely give it a thumbs up. Highly recommend it. I think you should go see it. It's one of those films that there are takeaways. Like, you can't even look at your phone for a second because it moves so fast and there's so much information, an abundance of information.
Wait, do you normally look at your phone?
No, that's just a saying. I mean, if I'm on the couch,
that's just a saying.
No, if I'm on the couch and like I get a text from like my wife.
Yeah, fair enough. If you're at home, yes.
Yeah, but I'm sorry. Yes. Now that you're saying that in the theater, no. We had this discussion
I was
earlier.
going to say, like,
oh, no. Yeah, you're like, you
were-
lied earlier. No, I don't look at my phone in the theater at all. I forgot. We're in a world where we get screeners. So I watched it on my couch. Yeah.
I went to the theater.
Yeah, I went to the theater.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
Like the
yeah.
normal folk.
Here I am taking it for granted. So thumbs up on the film. Mindset, like I said, there's a lot to learn in here. And from the start, the mindset that that's delivered from Kevin Costner's character and how he pushes his daughter, which is Molly, for brilliance. And you see that it pays off in the family. There's a big controversy about being tiger dads and tiger moms, but wow, his kids all amount to amazing things. And look it up. You'll see what her siblings do. It's just absolutely amazing. So mindset, well delivered in the film, well written. So I give it 2 thumbs up for that.
Boom.
All right. So despite my reservations about the VO, I still give the film a thumbs up because it is such a strong, kick-ass, powerful female character who really, I heard Aaron Sorkin describe her as a hero. Like, he likes superheroes with capes, but this is the kind of hero he wants to write about. And I just love that. And that just comes through so strongly in the film. It is her story, and I love that. So love following her journey. Her journey is fantastic. The story is just so fascinating. So love the film, despite a slight issue with the VO. And then Mindset, huge thumbs up. This is one of the top films we've reviewed on this show for Mindset. I think there's just so much, as you can tell from this discussion, that you can take away from it. So 2 huge thumbs up for me.
So for me, I think my feelings on this are already pretty clear. From a movie perspective, big thumbs up. I thought it was very well written, very well directed by Aaron Sorkin. The acting is absolutely top notch. Loved both Jessica Chastain and Idris Elba. The speech that he gives in the courtroom where he's like, would you please drop these charges, was so good. And there were moments where everything could have been super cheesy. Go ahead.
I was just say we didn't even talk about the mob hit scene, which was so powerful.
Oh, in her condo?
Yes, the Russians become involved in the game. She's not aware, and then they try to influence her to start using them as muscle to get her money back, and she gets beat the fuck up. And it was, I love the way that they filmed that because, you know, it's always a tricky situation when you're seeing a woman being abused on film and how that's going to be portrayed. But we've already established how strong she is as a character, and just, I don't know, that scene really, like, I was shook after that scene.
I was pissed because it was an old fat dude. I was like, come at me, old fat man.
I know. And then she, like, takes care of herself alone after that experience. Just like, oh my God, Molly Bloom.
That was one thing, like, nobody comes to rescue her,
Yeah,
right? Like,
yes.
even the attorney is sort of poised to rescue her. She goes against his advice.
Yes.
Right?
She's not a princess.
Then wins because of it. Yeah, really well handled. So definitely thumbs up from the movie perspective. The acting is great all around, including Michael Cera and other supporting characters, all of whom I thought were amazing. And then from a mindset perspective, this literally is an entrepreneurial fable as far as I'm concerned, and tells an entrepreneurial story very well of literally how to get ahead. And they actually walk you through it because of the use of the voiceover, which I thought was really well done and allows Aaron Sorkin to go in and give you takeaways you can actually pull into your own life. Thought it was absolutely incredible. So thumbs up. 2 thumbs up for me. Absolutely wonderful. All right, guys, let us know where your thumbs are at. We want to know. Drop it into the comments. Thank you so much, as always, for joining us. If you're finding value in these, please do share them. That helps us grow the community. We would really appreciate it. If you haven't already seen our other shows on my /Tom Bilyeu channel, go check that out. We put out a lot of content there, all mindset focused, all trying to help you get the most out of your life. Hopefully this content is adding to that as well. Thank you so much for joining us. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. And until next time, my friends, be legendary. Take care.